All right, hello. Can everybody hear me? Can anybody hear me? Is it on? Is the mic on? The mic is on. Hello. Hi, everybody. Hello and welcome. Better? Okay. All right. Thank you for coming, everyone. Richard,
Sorry, I just got to plug this on.
go right ahead. Go right ahead. Okay. Oh, I have some motorcycle and not feedback. All right. So I'm Mayor Schick, since we have a lot of new faces in the room. And welcome to our special meeting on the town's wastewater issues. I really want to thank you for coming today. If you were able to pick up an agenda, and I don't know what's run out from the front of the room, copy-wise, I'm going to give you a little bit of idea of the framework of the meeting today. A big purpose of the meeting, calling this meeting, was to have a conversation with several stakeholders, and that includes the public because we're a public body. And so in order to include the public, we wanted to schedule a time to also have an opportunity for questions and answers. As you'll see, we did have a link where you could submit questions ahead of the meeting. I know some people did that. I'm sure other people have questions here today. We're going to try to get to as many questions as we can get to, and have as many answers as we can have. Obviously, some questions may not have an answer right now, and we may have to get back to people on things. But we're here with a whole round of partnerships and agencies and stakeholders outside of just the arena of the town of Colonial Beach. And I just want to say that this meeting, I wish I had more tables. We're already crammed in here enough. We're normally sit way back there, and we're purposely are trying to get closer to you, closer to have the conversation. In order to have a conversation, it obviously needs to be respectful, and we're going to have to be respectful of people's time. And in that as well. And so I do have 2 hours on the meeting. If it goes over, we may need to schedule another meeting, and that's fine too. We can also follow up to more questions through email format, and we'll be posting a frequently asked questions page on the website after this as well. Before I call the meeting to order, I just want to make sure that everybody feels welcomed, that we are so grateful that you're here today. We're thankful to have your voice, but also your ears and your energy and the mindset to work together as a team on realizing the challenges we have in the town and the solutions to them, which are sometimes long and tenuous. So with that, I will call to order this meeting. It is 4:04 p.m. and all members of our council are present. And I just want to thank them, for being here and really unanimously as a body working together towards these issues. With that, I'd like to go around the room and do some quick introductions. If you are with a government agency or a department, to just briefly introduce your name and what agency or department you're with, and if you're on the list, so that we get an idea who's in the room and who maybe is going to be able to answer some questions here other than just staff. But I'm going to start with our staff first and start with Mr. Duggan and this way, and then we'll.
I'm Pal Duggan, town attorney.
Good afternoon, I'm John Anzavino, interim assistant town manager.
Good afternoon, I'm Diane Meyer, I'm the director of public works here. Karen Sullivan, I'm a member of town council. Chris Brown, town council.
Penny Allison, vice mayor.
Vicki Robertson, council.
David Lynn, council. Fred Wood, town council. R.T. Taylor, Davenport Company.
Jamie Robb, DEQ.
Scott Morris, GQ.
Shannon Gordy with Moonshot Missions.
Harry Kowalski, Wastewater Treatment Plant Supervisor.
We have a couple more agencies on our list here. It's NSA South Potomac here.
I'm here.
Okay.
I am Captain David Wilson. I'm the skipper of Dahlgren and 4 other bases, but our command is called Naval Sport Activity South Potomac. So 2 fence lines in Virginia, 3 fence lines in Maryland. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Potomac River Fisheries Commission? PRFC? They said they were coming? Okay. Westmoreland County?
Tim Trivet, representing the town of Point Beach on Westmoreland County Board of Supervisors, 5th District.
Is any of the state representatives have anybody here? The Wetlands Board? Westmoreland County Wetlands Board? Okay. Twin Rivers?
President, Frederick Waltman, okay.
Thank you for being here today. Virginia Watermen's Association?
Yes, Monica Shinneman, Secretary of the Virginia Watermen's Association.
Thank you for being here today. Oyster Industry? Bevin?
AJ Erskine and Ben's Oyster Company.
Lee Deal, Calvert City Corporation.
Thank you. Potomac River Keepers?
Total River Keeper Network.
Hi, Dean. Nice to meet you finally. Is there any other agency that I haven't listed off here? Okay.
U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. So we will start with a brief presentation. Our assistant town manager, interim assistant town manager, is stepping into this role today because our town, regular town manager, interim town manager, has had a health emergency and has been in urgent care today. So as we do in a small town, we do the best we can with what we got. And I will say that Mr. John Anzabino is, that wasn't meant to be any kind of, I'm just saying, people may not know Mr. Anzabino in our community. And so I wanted him to have an opportunity to introduce himself in this role, and that we really have been working as a team, especially today, as we have had to navigate having this meeting, which we have been preparing for, but now without the town manager in place. So, we really do the best we can, and that's what we're here today to do.
Thank you, Mayor. I am John Anzabino, the guy with the funny last name. And just so you know who I am a little bit, I was a local government manager and administrator here in the Commonwealth for 25 years. Helped plan and develop, finance, and build the Caroline Wastewater Treatment Plant and water system. I was the town manager in Warrenton for 13 years, where we expanded our wastewater treatment plant to about 3 million gallons of capacity, dealt with I&I issues. I was the county administrator in Amelia County, where I actually took wastewater samples, which is a small county. Retired, went to work in the private sector as a consultant, working with communities nationally in conjunction with a wide range of local government issues. Served as an advisor to the Virginia Resource Authority on financing and did actual analytics for them in conjunction with some of their bond issues. And then retired finally, and have served as an interim town manager, administrator in 5 different communities since I retired. I currently work for the Berkeley Group. I'm here on a very limited engagement basis, 10 hours per week to assist your town manager in working through a number of different projects. So that's who I am. Now, in conjunction with the presentation, if we could have the next slide, please. Okay, could we have the next slide, please? Okay, just want to bring you folks as members of the Colonial Beach community up to speed in conjunction with what the town has been doing. The town, since the spill last July, and even prior to the spill, has not been idly sitting on their hands. Staff has been working on a number of different projects, the SCADA system. And folks, if you're in the audience, SCADA is an acronym that you probably have never heard before. Essentially what it boils down to is it's a alarm system which electronically communicates with public utility staff to make sure that if something is going wrong, that they are aware of it. And they get an alert 24 hours per day if the plant is not staffed. That system was out of date. The town invested $160,000 in upgrading it. That was part of the problem, we understand, back in July of 2023. And that system is almost fully operational. It's been beta tested. There's some fine tuning that needs to be completed, but those improvements have been completed. In addition, there are numerous pumps that need to be replaced at the wastewater treatment plant. Rotated and activating sludge, that's part of the treatment process, which I won't try to explain. Those pumps were not working as well as they should or weren't working. Scum pumps, believe it or not, as you flush your commodes and empty your sinks, you get scum in the wastewater that's being treated. And so we have pumps which pump the scum for further treatment. Those have been replaced. Additionally, a number of repair parts, spare parts have been ordered, which were not on hand, which we won't go into detail on. But what I would tell you is that the town has spent about $640,000 in recent years in dealing with upgrading and maintaining the wastewater treatment plant beyond daily operations. I would also say that this is a problem which did not develop overnight. The condition of the plant, it is not a problem that will be resolved in the next 2 weeks. It is something which will take time. It will take effort. It will take good planning to complete the improvements that need to be made. I have to say, working probably with 300 or 400 local governments in my career, I know that sounds like a lot, and I'm a real glutton for punishment, that this council, my brief tenure working with the town, has stepped up to the plate and is committed to understanding the problem, financing what needs to be done, and rectifying the problem that they have at the wastewater treatment plant and parts of the system that go into the wastewater treatment plant, such as the collection system, such as the pump stations, which get the waste to the pump station, to the wastewater treatment plant. And they are not sitting idly by. Consequently, just very quickly, beyond the $640,000 that's been invested in the plant recently, and the $160,000 for the SCADA system update, the town has invested in dealing with and correcting what is a very difficult problem, infiltration and inflow. That's where the pipes below ground, they get water seeping into them, goes to the wastewater treatment plant. You got to treat it. It's costly to treat, and it also overloads the plant, particularly if you have a lot of inflow, which is direct introduction of water into those sewer lines. The town spent on the central drainage area project $2.87 million. I'm correcting that. That is near complete. The final drawings are under review by Public Works staff, and has about $2.8 million still to be spent in regard to correcting infiltration inflow problems. And those are currently undergoing the more detailed engineering that needs to be completed. So the town has been working very hard to get things corrected. Next slide, please. The town as far as upcoming activities that are being worked on, technical support, they're investigating retention of a plant operations contractor that would serve as a resource for treatment plant manpower needs. If you're not familiar with what's going on in the public sector today, very difficult to hire qualified wastewater treatment plant operators and to retain them, particularly in small communities, rural communities. And you have to have a complement as directed by DEQ. That they would also provide technical support for evaluating and optimizing the treatment processes at the facility. The town also is working to retain a professional engineering consultant who would interface with Moonshot efforts. And Moonshot's a super program if you're not familiar with it. It's a program of folks who used to work in the wastewater industry to provide their time and consultation services to local governments who are in need. And I wish I'd had that when I was a manager. We spent a lot more money on engineering than you might. But they provide, and they've been in on site and are developing a final report for the town council's review at the present time. The professional engineering contractor that would complement the Moonshot efforts because there's a lot more detail to getting into fixing the problems. We need to really get into a detailed asset management evaluation and provide some prioritized recommendations. We need to define and recommend the needed upgrades and really refine the costs because as you can tell, we talked a lot about the money that's spent. There's a lot more money that needs to be spent. They would support collaboration with the Department of Environmental Quality, which is the regulatory agency which oversees the permitting of the plant. It tells us when we're not meeting those permit parameters and has the authority to penalize the town if they don't meet those parameters. And then we coordinated with associated stakeholders. The town council, we had received as staff a couple of proposals for both of these improvements or complementary staff efforts. And they're under review now, and they'll be reported to the town council at your next meeting, hopefully for some action, so you can see what the costs might be, and so you can see how they will fit into the overall operation of the wastewater treatment plant collection and treatment system. Next slide, please. So our plans moving forward, assessing the infrastructure improvements, as I've noted, through the I&I, through assessment of the plant, taking the Moonshot report, and refining some of the findings in there. Increased communication and engagement with the community. One of the problems that I've found today in the world is that citizens don't really have a good grasp of what's going on in their local governments. And local newspapers are kind of going by the wayside because of the economics of operation of local newspapers. Consequently, we are working now at the staff level on ways to develop a dashboard on the town's website to provide you updates as to what projects when they're all prioritized, the council is funded, what the start date is, what the completion date is, what the status is, so you can readily access that information. In addition, we talked about the increased investment in operational reliability, and that's through the investment in plant improvements and putting spare parts in place should something go down. And then continuing engagement with Virginia DEQ in response to the upcoming consent order. Consent order has not yet been issued. We understand it's probably in the mail. And that will tell the town, with past history of the town, what they need to do to immediately correct problems and what the penalties are for not correcting those problems. So we're moving forward with all of those things, and the town staff is working very closely with the council and is working to get all of those resolved. So, Mayor, thank you very much.
Okay, so we have a lot of people in the room and hopefully we'll be able to have a good conversation about the wastewater treatment plant. I hope everybody can leave here today, maybe not with all of their questions answered, maybe there will be more questions, but at least a better understanding than you had when you got here. And like I said, we're really should have tables or TV trays or whatever it takes to get everybody at the table in this room because we really all are at the table, and that's the way I view it. And I want to have a conversation with you in that way. So we will be taking questions that were submitted in advance first. The really catalyst for getting together a special meeting was the work of Michael Lightfoot, who is not here today. But I just can't thank him enough in his collaboration and communication. He's picked up the phone and called me, and so many times that means the world, because it doesn't, if you just look online or you're just Google searching, and we're a small town with small staff and limited resources online, with maybe you're not finding the answers there, right? So reaching out has really got us connected in a good way. So I'm going to start with the questions and the representation from some of our environmental groups that are here today that were a part of Michael's concerns. And so we'll start with the Bevins Oyster Company's representative, Lee Deal. Is that right?
It's
Did I-
AJ Erskine.
Okay.
Should I come up to the
I'm
podium?
sorry, yeah, come on
Okay.
up. And Mr. Duggan, for people that don't know, is our town attorney, but he's also the parliamentarian. So if I talk too long, he's gonna cut me off and tell us to keep moving on.
I promise I won't be a problem. AJ Erskine from Bevins Oyster Company. Thank you, Mayor Schick and members of the town council and staff. Certainly appreciate the opportunity to come before you all and discuss this. For background, Bevins Oyster Company plants shells and oysters in collaboration with other businesses by co-leasing or subleasing the ground that's outside Monroe Bay and Colonial Beach. For decades, we produced thousands of bushels of oysters in this area. It's been highly productive. Outside of the sewage treatment plant concerns, we've had other issues with freshwater and things that we've lost product in the past. So there is an inherent risk in planting seed oysters, and we accept that risk. We plant oysters all throughout Chesapeake Bay and in nearly all the tributaries in Virginia. So outside of the ecological services that they provide in terms of reducing your nutrients and improving water quality, we also have an economic benefit to what we're doing, and that's obviously our goal. Our concern is the sewage spills that impact the ground, and when the Virginia Department of Health Shellfish Safety comes out and tests that water, it contaminates it and pollutes it, and therefore closes. They're required by regulation to close the ground to shellfish harvesting. So the limit that we deal with is actually more strict than a swimming standard. The standard we deal with in oysters is far more strict. So our ground tends to close with a little bit of pollution, not really a tremendous amount. What we've seen in these grounds is a continual closure around Colonial Beach and specifically Monroe Bay. So instead of having almost 500 plus acres to plant, we've gone down significantly over the last several years. So our concern is, and I guess my question, I don't know if it can be addressed or not, is in the sewage treatment plant plan that they have, is there some kind of bond that would protect against remediation efforts or whatever it might be, should there be an accidental spill for people that have resources in the water that are beholden to water quality?
Do you have oysters in Monroe Bay?
Yes, we
Okay.
have over 9,000 bushel planted right now currently.
Where the outfall is.
It's outside of the Colonial Beach and outside of Maddox Creek, so it's more in the outside on Monroe Bay, exposed area of Monroe Bay. But that's the area we're seeing close.
In front of, between Monroe Bay and Maddox Creek.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
As far as the bond issue, may have to get back to you on that question
Okay.
specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, and I appreciate you, and the industry is, VDH is not here, and I wish they were here today, because they often issue closures in an abundance of caution until results come back.
Mhm.
And as we saw in the last 3 spills, my understanding is there was, the results all came back with inequality.
So just to address the health department, we do work closely with the health department on many different areas. This one in particular is of concern, but it won't kill the oyster necessarily, but according to the standard that they have, the health department is required to close that ground to shellfish consumption. Generally, it's a 21-day closure, but it could certainly be longer should those samples not come back within the limits. So what that means is, for us, we lose the opportunity to catch those oysters when they're big enough at a certain time when we need them. Right now, like I said, what we just planted last year is just seed, so they're certainly not going to be ready for harvest now. It might be next year.
Does that generally take 2 years from seed?
Generally 2 to 3 years. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for investing in our environment out there too.
Oh, well, thank you for your support. Appreciate it. Thank you.
The next up, I have a Watermen's Association and Monica.
Hello, good afternoon. So basically, I'm just here to, one, thank you for all the information you provided, because that was a wealth of knowledge, I know for me. But I don't have to tell you that, the watermen rely on these areas out here for our income. Not just that, I think it hurts public perception of what they're consuming. So, at one point, we had a closure on crabs also. So I'm looking forward to this continued conversation and this continued effort to improve these sewage spills so that we don't have them. Basically for the economic part of what we do every day and just for the environment in general. So thank you for that.
Thank you. You're preaching to the choir about the crabs and oysters up here, guys. By the way, very supportive of the industry as far as consumption is concerned.
It's why some of us.
It is. I want to make sure we give time also to J.C. Hudgens, Ed Arness, Virginia Watermen's Association, Twin Rivers Watermen's Association. Did I get that?
Casey will not be here today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, for giving us a chance to have a little voice in this. Potomac River is for everybody, and to share, but for the watermen, it's our way of life, and it's the way we make our living. And when we have closures, we're shut down. We can't work. We have no income at that time. Recently on Rappahannock, we had a closure for 10 days, which had affected us for 6 days of work. And we had about 60 boats working there. And in those 6 days, we lost over $200,000 in revenue in those 6 days. And it's just, it's really bad to have them closed on us. And, we feel that we need to keep a good handle on this thing and get this thing straightened out. And we had a spill in St. Mary's a few years ago. They closed it. 11 people were sick, got sick from it. And we just don't want the Potomac River to get a reputation of getting people sick and all. It'll hurt the whole industry. You're going to be, people not going to want to eat your oysters, not going to want to eat your crabs. That's we'll get them from Rappahannock or Maryland or somewhere. We don't want to get them out of the Potomac River. So we're just trying to protect, the Potomac River. Thank you.
Thank you. What happened to the Rappahannock?
It was just a water quality closure, and it was in January of this year, and they closed it for 10 days. It wasn't a spill or anything, it was just bad water. And they came down the river, and we didn't get an explanation of really what it was, but they did close it for 10 days. Yeah, so it really affects us a lot.
It's all the rain we had.
The rain.
So it's
Yeah.
just so much, so fast.
We had a lot of rain and it delayed installing that SCADA system that we talked about up there because we were supposed to get that installed, but you have to take the whole system offline to put the electronics in, which means you're
Absolutely.
handling it by hand. And so, yeah, it's affected everything. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, they had also submitted some questions. I see, Dean, you're moving your way around. I was gonna answer to these questions first, is that good? Or do you wanna come up there? Okay, they had submitted some questions, so I'm gonna ask for John to respond on the status of the grant and how much money was spent on the plan. I think some of these things you did respond to kind of in your opening remarks. The explanation of the 3 spills. You have the questions in front of you, John? Okay.
The first question to be addressed is the status of the grant to Senator. Sorry about that. First question is status of the grant. The Senator Stewart coordinated for the CV treatment plant, specifically Virginia House Bill 2022, House Bill 30, $5.7 million. This money was allocated for I as staff informs me. And as I mentioned to y'all, we have completed the CDA project, the Central Drainage Area Project. We're now moving on to assessing 2 other drainage areas out of 5 identified in a report completed by an engineering firm called Dewberry. The staff estimates that the remaining amount that will be available for expenditure will complete those 2 areas. And we have begun to investigate finding additional funds to complete the other 2 areas. So that work is ongoing. I don't have a timetable on it for you, but the I&I projects are moving forward in conjunction with those funds. How much money was spent in 2023, 2022, and 2023 on the plant? What for, and what are the operating plant upgrades, future plans, and additional needs? I've touched on what has been done to the plant in conjunction with buying pumps, buying additional repair parts. We've got a lot of work still to do out there. Those have been identified by Moonshot. They will be confirmed by an engineering firm, and costs will be refined, and those improvements will be made. There's about total, based upon Public Works Director's information she sent me today, in the collection system, the pump stations which fit into the collection system, and the wastewater treatment plant, we've got another $16 million worth of work to complete to get the whole system up to an acceptable level. And those numbers have to be refined by engineers as design is completed. In conjunction with the 3 spills in 2023, why these happened, there's a pattern, concerns on future treatment plant expansions. Well, right now, I can answer the last part first. Right now, as to my knowledge, there's nothing on the table in conjunction with wastewater treatment expansion, correct? We've got to get the system up and operational first, the way that it should be operated. The 3 spills that occurred in 2023, those were not really operator error. They were really mechanical failures of the system because of failed pumps, because of the system not being maintained, all of which have been addressed or are being addressed through the Moonshot effort and through efforts by the staff at the wastewater treatment plant to make the repairs that they're capable of making and getting them complete. The Dotson plant, the largest residential and business development project in the town's history. Please explain what upgrades are currently underway with a treatment plant to handle this large project. The link below is the town's advertisement for this massive residential project. The Dotson project, I'm not intimately familiar with, to be perfectly honest with you. This is my 3rd week. I'm here about 10 hours a week, okay? But what I can tell you is that the plant has unused capacity. But that unused capacity isn't any good if you don't operate the plant the way it's supposed to be operated and you don't maintain it the way it's supposed to be maintained. Consequently, the efforts that are ongoing by the staff at the present time, by the folks that I've noted at the present time, are really important to really addressing the problems that we have with spills first. And as the Dotson project and the expansion and additional housing units come online, those will be absorbed into the plant capacity as it exists and is permitted by DEQ. On the last question on the town webpage, the link called Airtable Gallery, which lists details of current status of 62 separate ongoing town managed projects. Doesn't include any treatment plant improvement projects. Attached to the link is to the list Airtable Gallery. Staff is aware that that needs to be updated. You know, you've gone through not only a transition in assistant town managers, but in town managers as well. Some plant operational staff as well. Consequently, a lot of those things, as the handoff took place, there was not consistency in the information that needed to be, and the updates that needed to be made, being made. The mayor and I had a discussion about the Airtable gallery today, and I have a couple of other ideas, as I mentioned, in regard to easier access to projects and their progress and their updates. Those will be affected working with your new town manager or interim town manager to make sure that they do occur and you have access to that information. So that addresses those questions, Mayor, I think.
Okay, thank you. I think the next set of questions was for DEQ. Do you have a copy of them, or you want me to read them off? We're just sharing mics today.
So, the two questions listed for DEQ, what is the compliance history for the last 5 years of SSOs? And is there a pattern of neglect and mismanagement? So we went back, and we've gotten a couple inquiries to, the compliance history of the plant. And, there have been several instances of non-compliance over the last 5 years as it pertains to both spills and overflows from the plant, but also from exceedance of limits. DEQ, as was mentioned earlier, the way that our process works is when we have an instance of non-compliance, that will elevate into either corrective actions, a warning letter, which again includes additional corrective actions or notices of violations that then get to refer to DEQ's enforcement program. So we're at the point now, and we're working with the town. We've issued a series of warning letters and NOVs over the past 5 years, and we are drafting a consent order. And so what that basically is an agreement between DEQ and between the town that outlines the facts of the circumstances as it pertains to non-compliance. But also, in that document, it's going to set forth the actions that the town has to take in order to come back into compliance. And an important note that someone mentioned earlier is that, the issues that we've seen did not necessarily happen overnight, and the fixes do not necessarily happen overnight. But there will be immediate actions as it pertains to submittal of plans and explanation of how the town is going to execute a plan to get back into compliance. So we are working on that. There will be an opportunity for public comment. Once the town has seen the draft order, DEQ then puts that out for public comment. We'll accept those comments during a 30-day period. So I would look for that. It gets publicized, usually in the newspaper or in our website. So I would look for that in the next few weeks. And I would guess that you guys can also commit to getting that information out there for the public. Regarding the pattern of neglect or mismanagement, I think that the important thing to say to that is that oftentimes treatment plants in small rural communities, they're faced with a lot of challenges as it pertains to both the technical side of operating a plant, but also the economics of operating a plant. So, while it's very unfortunate that we're having these issues with the Colonial Beach plant, these are issues that we do see at our rural, small community plants. And quite frankly, there are issues that happen at our larger plants that you see in a more urban setting. You do have equipment failures that happen. You do have changes in staff and personnel and things that can affect the overall operations of the plant. So
Answer that question.
I think that.
All right, we'll wait until, I couldn't hear questions from the audience, but we'll get, there's a whole lot more questions, so I'm sure we'll have more questions to get to. Okay, next that's all I had on that section from Michael. So next was Dean. I know I just saw him. Oh, there you go. And I'm sure some of these questions will spark more questions too, so we'll keep going.
Well, first off, thank you for having this public hearing. And thank you for the watermen for showing up and speaking their voice. Thank you for the citizens. This river, Potomac River, belongs to the public. And I think it's always important to remind, Colonial Beach, anybody who uses this resource, that it does, it's a public entity. And, as Potomac River Keeper Network, we have a lab here. We partner with Potomac River Fisheries Commission. We're doing water quality monitoring every single week during the summer months, from May through October, to let people know when it's safe to use the river, when it's not. We have a downloadable app called Swim Guide, so people know when it's safe. And we have a campaign called Swimmable Potomac Campaign. And part of that campaign is fixing failing sewage treatment plants. So we're doing it up and down the watershed, dealing with Alexandria right now and fixing their combined sewer system. We have a lawsuit with the Attorney General across the river with Medcom Sewage, who also had a failing plant. And, I'll just say that you're not alone, right? I've been doing this for 23 years, dealt with many, many failing sewage systems, right? And I just, so we've been following what's been going on. I was here 4th of July, actually just recreating and swimming, being part of. Appreciate his leadership on this. I've talked to your town manager, talked to the Department of Health, just trying to figure out what's going on with the status of this. I did see your moonshot presentation. I thought that was very informative. I greatly appreciate that. And I will say about, moonshot, obviously I think what they were focused on is bringing the town into regulatory compliance. That's a really important first step. But I did talk to George Hawkins, who's the owner of Moonshot, or the president of Moonshot. And basically the one thing that I thought that came up in our conversation was there's a whole other section of Moonshot called the Environmental Finance Center. And these are people that have worked with various state and federal agencies, like the State Revolving Loans Fund, right, that finds funding for wastewater infrastructure at the federal level. And these are the people that are on that Environmental Financing Center. So I would encourage you to take that next step and get involved with Moonshot, because, if it takes a couple $100,000 to bring you in several million extra dollars to fix and upgrade your sewage plant, then I think it's well worth it. You just can't get this funding from the town alone. And I will say that just because you're going to be under consent order by Virginia DEQ, which is also a positive step in the right direction, it doesn't mean you're going to come into compliance. We've seen this with other towns, municipalities, where they're like, oh, we're under a consent decree, which basically, quite frankly, shields those towns from us being able to sue them. But if it comes into compliance, that's a good thing. But we've seen towns where they've gone through the whole 5 years and then not been in compliance, after that 5-year time. What did they do? What did they actually do to step up and fix that sewage system? And I think it's really important because Colonial Beach is very unique. You're surrounded by water. Your entire identity is owed to this river, your beach community. It's different than a small mill town that lives up on a small tributary. It's really, really important that you make these commitments. And part of that is going to be raising your rates. You're going to have to raise your rates. And probably people don't want to hear that, but that's the reality. If you're going to get federal dollars, you're going to get state dollars, and really fix this plant and go above and beyond regulatory compliance, not minimal regulatory compliance, but actually have a plant you're proud of in 25, 30 years from now, you're going to have to raise these rates. Bottom line, you're going to have to do it. It's the commitment. It's about leadership. I think you need to do better public notification. You can be sending out these notice of violations and things from DEQ, letting the public know if you have violations, but also if you have a spill, you don't need to wait around for the state public health department to figure out what's happening and have several days of delay. You could say, hey, we have a sewage spill. Town of Arlington, a lot of other places do this. They have an email notification system. Lastly, I just will say this, is that we heard a lot from like DEQ about non-compliance and all this, jargon about notice of violations. And what it really means at the end of the day is that the town of Colonial Beach is breaking the law. You are breaking the law every single time you have a sewage spill. And it's really important that you own that and accept that and know that that's what's happening. And we talked about some of the maintenance or the management, but I don't know about the management. I do know you just have a really bad failing sewage system. And it was clear in that presentation. And we know that there's been deferred maintenance, right? There's been ongoing deferred maintenance that goes back years, right? So that is a management issue. And really, at the end of the day, I'll just say this, it's about political leadership, and it's about leadership in general and a commitment to fixing this sewage system. And so everyone that I've ever worked on, usually, fixing the sewage system has been a low priority until all of a sudden there's a lawsuit or like the Alexandria law that's passed or this, public outrage that you're seeing today. And then all of a sudden it gets elevated to a much higher priority. You need to make this your number one priority over the next several years. That this needs to be a priority because everybody lives here. People use the beach, people come here for the beach. And so you can hook up all these extra, apartment complexes and condos, but the reality is if your sewage system is still not working, and you still have sewage spills in 3 and 4 years from now, there's gonna be a lot more public outrage than what you're currently seeing. So I would just really commend to you that this is, so my question is really, our budget season's coming up. Is the town gonna raise rates to demonstrate that leadership, that commitment to fixing this sewage treatment system? That's all I got.
RT, you wanna follow up with that? So at the strategic action meeting in January, the town, council meets with the staff and we kind of talk about what the major issues of the year are gonna be and help prioritize that. The sewer system was prioritized at number 1. It's kind of 1, 2, and 3, to be totally honest with you. And it was adopted into number 1 as our legislative request. We've been to Richmond to meet with both Senator Stewart and Delegate Kent. And also at that meeting, there was a preliminary analysis by Davenport who helps us understand affordability. And so I want RT to talk a little bit about kind of what his background and the information that we are getting on that point, because it's a point worth talking about.
Good evening. Thank you for your question. I think the upshot is that the analysis we conducted for basically what we had information on the first 6 months of fiscal year 24, we identified a couple key areas where costs have really increased due to the 3 spills up through December timeframe. At the meeting on January 12th, we gave a preliminary analysis that what those impacts would be incrementally. The upshot is that we identified that we have some cash to shave the differences for the remainder of fiscal year 2024, but some really detailed analysis has to be done to see what rate increases should be implemented in the fiscal year 25 budget. So again, I think to answer your question, that was what we determined as well, is that there are some potential rate increases. We just need to coordinate with town staff, engineers to figure out exactly what that appropriate level would be for starting commencing fiscal year 25 budget process.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Dan. The next set of questions, yeah, come on up. We'll have Captain Wilson from the Tornado Base.
All right, thanks, man, for having me. Nice to meet everybody. First time being down here. Really like it here. It's awesome. So in addition to raising rates, I would tell you that the specialized operator of that class 2, permit or operator that you need to run a plant like this, those people are hard to hire and they're hard to keep around. So you might want to look at maybe bumping the salary. That's just a suggestion. But that's just a point I wanted to make. I'm here to offer the basic support. I mean, we tried over the weekend to try to get this. I still think I can help. I think the guys can come down and give your plant a once over and give you some notes. And I would offer to you a lesson that I learned from a sewage spill at one of my other bases. I&I can mask when you have a spill. So if you have a bunch of rain and you have I&I and it gets into your system, your flow rates look like they're good. Right, but then you go later, you're like, oh wait, now fluids start really low, a spill somewhere. So I&I can actually hide a spill, and you might not find it right away. So just throw that out there as FYI, and look forward to continue partnering with you.
Thank you so much, Captain Wilson. We have some more questions submitted ahead of this meeting. Where are we at on time? Okay, we're doing good. We're doing all right. You guys still with us? Okay. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's right. Okay. All right, so I'll start with the questions that were submitted in advance, and then we'll, if somebody could bring up the question list from the front, that would be helpful too, so that when we get to that part. Okay, given that the town now has a plan to address long-term physical and digital issues related to the treatment plant, what is the plan for ensuring that information concerning progress and setbacks are regularly and quickly conveyed to town residents in various media outlets? And I'll give that one to John. Did you track me on that? Sometimes I read fast, too. Talk fast.
Well, again, the town needs to get the information out. The easiest and most comprehensive way of doing that is by getting a dedicated tab or page on the town's website to get that up and have that schematic plan or whatever it is, as I mentioned earlier, with the project, with the estimated cost, with the start date, with the estimated completion date, and with a status bar as to how far that project has advanced in conjunction with the construction or the improvement that's being made. I would note a number of the questions are dealing with, well, if you've got a spill, we need to be notified very quickly, much more quickly than we have in the past. How many of y'all here are subscribers to Code Red? Good, good. For you folks that aren't, that is offered through the town's website. It's an emergency notification system. It will give you a text or it will give you a call. And the town, our public works director informs me that when we do have a spill, Code Red is utilized for notification of those spills. I know, I live in Middlesex County off a tributary of the Rappahannock. I grow oysters, by the way. They clean 50 gallons of water per day per oyster. I grow them recreationally, but they're also good eating, as you all well know. But we need to do a better job of getting that information out. And we are going to do that electronically, but we would suggest that you folks who are not subscribers to Code Red, go to the town's website, find Code Red on there, and so become a subscriber, and you will receive those notifications when a problem does occur.
What about visitors on weekends?
Good point. That's something we're gonna have to work at, and I'll make a note of that and talk to the town manager about it. Because, yeah, that's a good point. You have a local radio station.
Nobody, visitors, you got a big sign out there that's blinking, parking enforced.
Okay.
Everybody knows that,
Yep.
parking's enforced. Yet on 4th of July, when the spill happened, nobody said a word, and people came here and visited and swam in that dirty water for 3 days, and the town said nothing.
Okay,
How do you notify those people?
okay. Well, using that sign may be one good way of doing it. But the fact of the matter is the town, like any community, has to put in contingency plans for dealing with issues like that. This is a tourism-based community. This is a community that needs to be concerned with their visitors. And they're here for recreation during the summer, so they need to be aware that they're swimming in clean or unclean water. That's going to be their choice. But that is something that the town will need to work on before the upcoming tourism season. Make a note of that and talk to the town manager about it.
I just wanted to, the beach closure was on that sign once it was issued, and it was issued by the state of Maryland ahead of our notice. Nobody called the town to know that. I saw it on Facebook just like everybody else. But the next question is, will we be advised of wastewater mishap in a timely fashion from here on out? And I think John's answer about Code Red and that Code Red system, if you are on it, you've got the last notice from us. And so that is in place now. And there's also a new communications plan that we've also adopted in place now that includes incident reports and other town communications. What is the HMI platform that we're using? This might be a question for Harry or for Diane. because it's got acronyms in it that I don't know. What is the HMI platform that you're using? What is the call out software for the alarm notification? What is the PLC or RTU that you are using? How often do you perform maintenance on the alarms and make sure they're checked? I'll start with that part of it.
Mayor, that's one I think that we'll need to post on the website as to what the response is. I was just talking to Diane about it, and, working through those acronyms and that process is fairly complex for the staff here, so we will get an answer to you for that.
Okay. What are the town's plans to upgrade the wastewater and potable water systems? Is there a division in place to monitor the SCADA? And I do think we have a maintenance contract now on the SCADA system. So it needed to just really get replaced first and then maintain it. Upgrading what we had was not viable.
Madam,
Yes.
could someone explain the separation between drinking water, which is and sewage system?
Sure, John, you want to go to explain the difference between the potable water, drinking water, and sewer?
Yeah, you don't mix the two together. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to bring a little levity to a serious situation. Your water system is primarily regulated by the Virginia Department of Health. And each year there's testing done on the water system, which is posted on the town's website concerning the water quality testing that has been done. The distributions, your water here is produced through wells. Those wells are tested on a frequent basis. Well water is minimally treated. You use just chlorine to disinfect. It goes into the distribution system to your tap. The wastewater treatment plant and system is, as I think I described just a few minutes ago, is what everything goes into once you've used your water. Plus, you've got a lot of rainwater in your system and a lot of groundwater which seeps into your system that increases the flow to the wastewater treatment plant, which has to be treated with chemicals, with electrical costs, with staff attention, and with the outcome being sludge and a number of different things that all have expense. Your treatment process here is a fairly complex process. To get the wastewater, which is going into the tributary or the bay, which the wastewater treatment plant discharges into a state that it is in conformance with the DEQ permit, which has been issued, which sets a number of different parameters for that wastewater that is tested on a regular basis. So two separate systems. One thing I found in my short tenure here is over the years, Colonial Beach I was in Warrenton, and we had an old system up there that we had upgraded and expanded, and we ran into some really interesting things. Here, we also have some very interesting things. I sat in a meeting with your town manager about a person who was renovating a building, and the question was, which sewage line in the street in front of that property would best serve that property? And I never heard of having two sewage collection lines in front of one property. That's sometimes four, according to the Public Works Director. For some reason, that evolved over time in Colonial Beach. The best scenario is to have one sewage line down one street with discharges from the various properties to that sewage line. That's got to be corrected, and is being corrected as part of your I&I program as well. But there are a lot of things that go into systems that our citizens don't really recognize because, you get your water in the morning, you flush, everything's fine. Fact of the matter is there's a lot more that goes into the process. Here in Colonial Beach, for some reason, like most rural communities, the system is developed in an interesting fashion.
Like chutes and ladders out there. Okay, the next question is, and I think you kind of answered this, John, in that last question. Does the county and state health department inspect the plant periodically? And I know DEQ does periodic inspections as well.
And health will come out and investigate the well system as well.
Are there log books, including shift changes, water or sewage levels, et cetera?
Yes, they are available, and they are kept on a frequent and regular basis in conjunction with the permitting process and the assigned parameters of the permit.
I think some of these questions might kind of touch on some of the same topics that we've been talking about. Is the alarm system on the equipment, if there's an issue and no one's managing the plant, do they get a notification or alert sent to their phone? And that's that SCADA system that we just got replaced. SCADA, it's an acronym that we call SCADA. What are the requirements for notifying citizens, fishermen, swimmers, states, health department, river keepers? Should steps be in place of procedures or timeframes for spillage amounts? And there is a communications plan that was adopted and an emergency action plan that was adopted that does alert basically who does what when something happens, right? And it's bigger than just a spill. I mean, it addresses all kinds of threats in our community, hurricanes, we're even having to address things like pandemics, other stuff too. Who gets notified, what happens next, and that's part of that emergency communications plan. Technically speaking, for notifications, like does DEQ, do you guys coordinate with VDH when they send out their notifications? Or is that the Department of Health just does their own?
So when we get a notification from a municipality like the town, that comes in to a centralized email system, and then that goes out to several agencies, including VDH and DEQ. So when they get that notification that an issue's happened, then they can take whatever actions need to be taken.
And then the practice I've seen so far has been that they generally tend to issue closures or notices ahead of getting results and then lift those once the results have returned.
That, they would have to speak to their protocols on that, but that's what we noticed with this situation in July.
Are there spreadsheets of expenses broken down for wastewater management, repair funding, and contracts?
Yes, there are, and we need to get that up on the website so it's available for folks to see. Again, that is something which I think the town is embarking on a path of getting more information out in regard to the challenges that it faces. And so on this wastewater treatment plant and wastewater collection system problem that we have, we know that you're interested. And we need to get that up on the website and out there to the public. It will be done. I'll work with your town manager on that.
And I just want to point out some of the things that we printed out to have on the wall here today are from presentations that have been given at our public council meetings. So this last council meeting, we're now getting monthly updates from the sewer system. So that's January's update, February's update. The next slide that's on the wall, the sanitary sewer system background, is from a Dewberry report that catalyzed the request for funds from DEQ. And it shows how many pump stations we're dealing with, how many drainage areas we're dealing with. And then the next is the CDA project that we just replaced. The next slide is on our website, which is about I&I. What is I&I? If you don't know what that is, that's a great slide. And then the following one is our legislative request and our assessment of needs that we have right now. And all of that is also online and on the website. How much money has the Dotson Group or other contractors donated or paid for infrastructure repair since they are doing building?
We will get back to you on the amount, but what I can tell you is this town, like most other localities, has two fees for connection to the wastewater collection system. One is called an availability fee. That's not actually a physical connection fee. That's for buying capacity in your plant. And that's estimated probably in your rate study. That is For all new connections, that is paid by the developer, by the new connector, whether it be a single-family house or a business. It's based typically upon meter size of what they're going to require in water. You also have tap fee, which is a fee paid for the physical connection to the wastewater collection system. And that fee is, that connection is typically done by municipal staff, and that covers the cost of the physical connection. So 2 fees, both being collected by the town, will have to get you the amount in conjunction with how much Dotson is paid.
Okay, why did the town put water meters on all the houses if they're not gonna use them? I think, I don't know, Diane, you want me to go for it? Either way. To my knowledge, the water meter project was before my time up here, but, my understanding that was part of a requirement from, I don't know, a state agency to put meters on everything. And that, rate setting has been the next step in that. And, basically, if we're gonna use the metered system, how do you do that in a way that full-time residents aren't paying for 80% of the system? Because we operate on, a metered system is gonna put in place of the idea that people that are using the system are the ones paying for it. Well, we have to have the system whether you're here or not, right? So for our part-time residents who aren't here, or weekenders, or people who have second, third beach homes, right now on the pay rate system that we have, everybody pays an equal share to it. And if we go to the metered system, then there could be an enormous burden on our full-time residents that then those part-time residents don't share in equally. So I think that's my understanding as to the rate system.
Excuse me, they use the water, so they should be paying for the water.
You're not making a point I'm not trying to also make, but yes, hold on.
So in every system, that I've lived in, there's been a base rate for your water. And then that enables you to have X number of gallons coming through the house. And if you use more than that, then you pay extra per gallon. I think that exists for our commercial customers now, right? I don't know why we haven't started metering the water. And that would be a question, I think, for Public Works, because I thought it was going to be done too.
From what I understand, and again, that, I'm fairly new here as well, but from what I understand from the former town manager, there was an issue with once you set the rates where you're paying for usage, it requires an incredible amount of work to build that out. And the finance department was unable to keep up with that billing, activity. So from what I understand from her, that was one of the big reasons that it was not put into place.
Okay, that makes sense. So, go ahead.
So the short answer to that is we're gonna investigate it, okay? We're gonna look into all that, make sure that we are, dotting our i's and crossing our t's to make sure, obviously we don't wanna make our full-time residents, I'm one of them, to, pay a lion's share of it. It should be across the board. And if it is a rate indicator that used by gallons, which I'm assuming it would be, we'll talk with Public Works, talk with our town manager, and as well as finance to make sure, we give you the best options, through council and through our public.
One of the things I just want to point out to Diane, what Diane said is staff capacity. I think sometimes people think there's like an unlimited amount of time in the work day and an unlimited amount of people that work. And I sometimes ask quite a bit of all of that too, and I understand it. And it's, but to add extra billing as you need to have capacity to do so. And we have a lot of major issues, especially with having this on our plate and trying to create real steps forward on this, that we're putting, that capacity towards these issues right now too. So, I think that's kind of a part of the issue. Okay, well, the next question is the whole town going to be dug up and new pipes laid? Go for it.
Yeah, it's starting tomorrow. Seriously, you heard the figure of $16 million. That's for all wastewater treatment plant and utility upgrades. You heard the figure of about another $2.7, $2.8 million being available for I&I work, which will satisfy 2 or 3 more basins, and still more to be done. These projects take time to plan, to engineer, to schedule, and to finance, and they all can't be done at the same time. Right now, the town's focus is on the wastewater treatment plant with a secondary focus on some minor projects in water, as well as the I&I program. So no, it will not be done all at one, not all of this will be done at one time. It's going to be over a period of time. Remember, I said earlier that it took a long time for the wastewater system to get into the condition that it's in. It will take a long time for it to get up to speed. But the important thing for you as citizens to understand is the governing body acknowledges that problem first. They have funded some solutions to that problem. They've directed staff to address the problem, and staff has reacted to address the problem. It's not a perfect world. You know, you can't make these systems work, stand up and bark overnight. You have to, make sure that you train them well, you take care of them well, and that you feed them well. And that's poor analogy for wastewater treatment plant or water operations, but all of those steps need to be taken. So it's going to take some time. But as I've said earlier, on many occasions, the town will do a better job of notifying you as to what's going on and when it might occur. When I was the manager in Warrenton, we had a very vigorous program to let folks know what was going on, whether we were doing night work, whether we were doing day work, when we were going to be doing work, where we would be doing work. And that was prior to, the use of internet a lot. So we did a lot of mailers, we did a lot of door hangers. You have the benefit now of living in the electronic age, but the town's going to have to address that.
Define, besides the planning, engineering, scheduling, and financing of wastewater treatment plant projects, what you label as minor projects in water?
Reviewing the capital improvements plan, you've got one water line replacement project that it's done. So there's nothing right on the table right now for water improvements, other than dealing with maintenance of the system as breaks occur.
All right, hold on. We're going to get to more questions, Donna. I know you have some too. Will the money allocated for infrastructure be used for upgrading? So I think they're talking about the DQ funding.
Yeah, so the money that's allocated for the $5.7 million for the grant, that has to be used for the grant purposes. So that goes through the submittal process for our Clean Water Financing Assistance Program. So yes, that has to be done. I think we committed to this week doing the final budget for that. Once that's reviewed, that grant will be executed probably within the next several weeks or a month. And then that has very specific obligations of commitment. So that grant is only eligible for reimbursement up to December 31st, 2026, which means that the project has to be completed by those timeframes. So just for awareness purposes.
So on that amount of funds, we will have to have those by 2026.
Yes, you'll have to complete the project and submit for reimbursement before the December 31st, 2026 deadline.
And the next opportunities for funding will be ongoing.
There's several grant programs, the revolving loan fund, those solicitation periods open up, and they also have periods of certain requirements for obligation. And so you'll go back through and verify that the intended use of those funds are what they were used for. So there isn't an ability for those funds to be used for whatever other capital improvement project you want. They have to be used for the funds that they're allocated for. There's not any mechanism in DEQ for that purpose.
Okay. How long will the total project last and total amount to do this? If it's grant money, would some of it be used for other projects the town wants, or will it all go to the sewer system? So I think that's still kind of related to that same amount of fund. But as far as the total project, how long will this total project last and how much is it gonna cost to do this? There's not an end. There's no end. This is a project that has to be kept up with well past my time up here, well past our time here, and all the people in this room. And so it's up to us from well beyond any meeting tonight to keep this top of mind in our community. And that when things move past the sort of urgency of today, that we don't forget to continue to maintain this. I know I won't ever forget for the rest of my life, and I'm gonna be living here a long time. So I know all of us, but I mean, I'm just,
Some less than others.
okay. This is going down a weird path. I just mean that it's not gonna be finished. We haven't just started. There's been things going on. It's just a continual project. What will be the impacts to the town? So I think, when will this start? Is it the beginning of summer when the town has its festivals? So I think they're talking about like the next steps of the next projects identified from the list to tackle.
An important thing for the town staff to recognize, working with the engineers who are doing the design and the contractor, is where this particular component of the project is and what time it's being done and how will it affect the neighborhood, the downtown area, or wherever that project is. In starting that project, we often schedule projects. Warrenton has a lot of festivals and a lot of things going on. We would schedule our projects around those festivals and halt work when those festivals occurred, putting the street or road back into the best condition possible so the festival could occur if we had to take that break. But again, it's a matter of communication with the council, with the public as to when those projects are going to take place, how they'll take place, and what the end line is on the projects.
Now you might stay up for this one. Why hasn't the town done anything before now to get infrastructure updated instead of piecemealing it?
I've worked in a lot of communities. And first of all, as I said before, this town is addressing the problems as in the cards that they've been dealt. The problem with water and wastewater, the mayor made a good point that this is ongoing. Once you put a new pipe in the ground or you open up a new wastewater treatment plant, you folks may not have a grasp of how toxic this process of treating wastewater is. You're adding chemicals, you're taking chemicals out, you're churning stuff that's coming into the wastewater treatment plant, none of which is very pretty. We actually, in Warrenton at one time, we got a cat caught or came in through a pipe in the screen that wasn't alive. But we received all types of things which we had to turn into treated wastewater. So this is a toxic process. It's a process that is where the pipes are continually breaking down because of the gas which is in the pipes, which you don't see. And so you have to, once you get your system up and operational to a condition you need it to be, you have to assess the assets, and you have to have a plan to replace those assets. Most small communities don't do that, haven't done that. And I think Colonial Beach is now addressing these types of plans that are needed, and will have, with the leadership of your governing body, plans in place and an improved wastewater treatment plant system, but it comes over time. Did that answer the question there?
I think just because there week 3 now with us, John.
Yeah.
And one of the parts of the question is, it's accusatory in the sense is why hasn't the town done anything before? And,
I don't think anybody can speak to that because it's an accumulated, these are accumulated problems over a number of years, which the governing body may not have been aware of, the staff didn't provide them or didn't recognize. And the fact of the matter is that I worked in a community recently, late last year, where the town council was they were not fully aware of the condition of their wastewater treatment plant. And they had a couple spills. You folks at DEQ Bowling Green, I was there too, at the tail end. And that plant was built at the same time that the county offered them participation in a regional system. Town chose to go their own way. That was, around 1989 or 90. They built a new plant. The new plant was state of the art at the time. But over a period of time, there was not the investment made by the governing body because when I arrived there as the interim, I was told that staff wasn't really conveying to them what needed to be done. I would also say that, we talked a little bit about rate studies and costs for the consumer to pay for water and sewage. It's not getting cheaper. The standards for treatment are getting more and more complex to protect you as a consumer, whether it be if you're swimming in the river or whether you're drinking the water. Consequently, that adds to cost, and you can't squeeze any. In many cases, local governments have tried to squeeze as much as they can out of the stone, not raise rates, and that neglect began to occur. I would probably say that may be the case here. I don't have enough history on it, but you're not different than a lot of other communities here in the Commonwealth and nationally.
I will speak to the fact that in the last, I did just a timeline of my knowledge of events and what we've been working on. So from basically 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, there's an enormous number of things that have been done. And we probably don't do a good enough job of getting that information out to people and letting them know what's happening. Like the point that Michael made when he emailed me originally about the air table on the website not being, you don't have wastewater stuff on the air table, but we had been doing all of these little projects and they just weren't on the air table on the website. And, we've got to do a better job of being vocal about the things that are going on because there has been a lot actually. And I mean, Diane knows the pumps, every pump we replace, but we don't have a celebration for every pump we replace, but maybe we should. We should start having birthday parties for them. And I don't know what else, but, okay, the bill, and budget for the grant money, we can put that on the website. This question is just about being, that'll be on the website when we have that. What happens to the town if we cannot renew the operating license by the renewal deadline of May 4th, 2025?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the May 2025 date is. So DEQ renewed the permit for the town of Colonial Beach effective July 1st, 2023. And when we renew a permit, there is a review of the compliance situation, but that permit is a standalone permit that doesn't look at or doesn't take into consideration whether or not they've been in compliance. It takes into consideration the limits necessary and the actions necessary to maintain and protect water quality. So while there are the compliance components that we see now, we've already reissued that permit. When the permit comes up for reissuance in 2028, then, we'll reevaluate that again for protection of water quality and hopefully we'll be much further down the road from these compliance issues. Yes, ma'am.
But the question is, what happens to the town if you all don't review a permit at some point in time?
She wants to know what happens if it doesn't.
So the way that our permit program works is the permit is to, authorizes the town to discharge wastewater. And any entity that discharges wastewater has to have a permit from the EQ if it's discharged to surface waters. So our process is that we have specific requirements that the town has to meet, or the permittee or the applicant has to meet. And we keep going back and forth with that entity until we get all information that we need to reissue the permit. If we got to a point where we didn't get the information, the permit would eventually expire and there could be no discharge from that plant. And when we say there's no discharge, then that becomes a bigger issue because you've got wastewater coming into that plant.
Are they non-compliant at that point? Is that the answer?
Yeah, so if you don't have a permit to discharge, if you do discharge at that point, you're in non-compliance immediately and it would escalate to enforcement.
That is a scenario.
But Robin, again, there's a nuance of this question that I'm not sure the renewal of the permit is the issue, because they're talking of a date of May of 2025, and that doesn't align with where we're at in the Bitfees permit. So if we get clarification on that, we certainly can speak to whatever specific certification they're talking about.
Okay.
It's in the moonshot report. Page 1.
Apparently it came from the Moonshot report. Okay, she's not sure. Okay, possibly some incorrect information on that. Has the town council considered privatizing or creating a water and sewer authority to ensure oversight?
The town council here is, I would say, you may not agree with it, but I do, because I've been around. Pretty progressive town council, and each year, I believe, you sit in a strategic planning session. This year's strategic planning session, one of your objectives was to examine privatization, creation of a regional authority, creation of an independent local authority, partnership with neighboring governments, or keeping the system and bringing it up to the standard that it should be at and continuing to operate. A study like that takes time on the part of staff because there are legal issues, there are financial issues, there are operational issues, there are potential partnership issues. So the staff has that on their work plan for the coming year, and that will be presented to the council sometime in the future. I haven't spoken to your town manager about what her schedule is on that, but it is on the radar for getting done in the coming, for a report in the coming year.
All right, the next one is the staff has sent a list. This is the last written question, and then we'll get to what's in person. Could somebody bring the list up from the back? Oh, Heather's got it. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. I was like, this is not. Oh, okay. Is this a start to it? Okay. All right. Got it. Okay, thank you. Okay. All right. All right, the last written question is staff has sent a list of the wastewater treatment system replacements and repairs to council on January 15th. The list identifies about 34 system items that need to be addressed. Can this information be shared with everyone to show the cost, to show the item, the cost of repair replacement, and when it has been or will be complete, or purchasing along with the source of funding?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's all the written questions that were submitted up to this point, so is that the next sheet? Okay. All right. We're doing good, guys. It's 5:30. We're doing great. So How's everybody out there? Everybody okay? Great. All right, so we're gonna go through this list now. If you have more than one question, that's absolutely fine. We welcome that. But we do want to give time for everybody to be able to, be heard. So we do ask that you just ask one question and a follow-up. We'll do our best to answer with the expertise that we have here. And then if we can't answer it, we'll get back to you, and then we'll go to the next person to try to make it through as many people and as many questions as possible. Then we can come back around again, and we could do that, as hopefully efficiently and productive manner. So, all right. First up, and Pal, you're still our parliamentarian over there. All right. Tammy Sessions is the first one. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you. I just had questions on funding. And is the town looking into low interest loans from DEQ, USDA to help assist with these, as the local gentleman from the Potomac River stated, we as citizens can't carry all this and get this done timely. And these loans, yes, there's debt service, but that's a lot easier to pay than raising a lot of rates.
It's a great question, Tammy. I was thinking of you already over there, Moonshot.
Yeah, as mentioned, Moonshot has several grant funds available to us, which allows us to provide our services to folks like the town at no cost. Actually, the work that we are doing is under the Environmental Finance Center grants. So the ultimate goal of that program is to bring communities to the state revolving loan programs, help them make application and help through that. So yes, that's part of our scope, is to help identify not only the state revolving loan funds, but any other funds that may be out there that we can tap into. We use that collective knowledge of folks from all across the country that have gone through this and said, hey, have you thought about this grant or that grant? There's a grant from FEMA that sometimes we can use for resilience. Not everybody thinks about that. So yes, that is something that is part of our scope, and happy to work with the town to do.
Yes, go ahead.
If I might as well, the town council has been forward-looking enough to retain the services of Davenport as a financial advisor as well. They'll be helping the council look through all of the costs as well as what the expenses are and how you may best finance those with grants, loans, and if necessary, debt, or maybe even rate increases. So that's another source of looking at how to get this financed, but the town is looking at all their grant and loan programs that might be available.
I think that's a good point, that any of the conversations would be had in coordination, and to make sure that's where a capital improvement plan comes in, which is one of the items that's on the list, is to say what projects need to happen, which ones do you need to fund through existing user rates, and which ones do you want to look for grant funds or to borrow, because borrowing is a way that allows the future users of the system to share in the cost of it, not just the existing users. So,
RT, do you have anything you want to add to that?
That's exactly what I would say. I mean, we're. Part of what we did at the retreat was trying to put some priorities and timing to projects that need to be addressed, working from obviously higher priority to things that can be put off or properly spaced out over a period of fiscal years, whether it's 5 or 10 fiscal years. But being able to stack up the potential funding mechanisms by which the town can afford these projects through some balance of cash and yes, debt, and how to layer that in over time such that it doesn't necessarily produce sticker shock on today's rate holders, but rather, to your point earlier, the sharing in the cost of the system over a period of time. Because it's not just who's living in the town today should pay for a 30-year project. It should be funded in a way that measures up, and it's the old accounting matching principle, matching the revenues and expenses to that period, again, matching it with the useful life and the expenditure of that useful life. So.
Yeah.
when it comes to the funding, I also want to remind everyone that where we got that $5.7 million was from the state legislature. And that our legislative agenda is how we prioritize what we go to the state and the federal government for help with. And that is our number 1, 2, and 3 item on our legislative agenda for this year and next year. So that is another source of funding.
Okay, the next person I have up is Mr. Bone, I think. Did you say? Pete?
No.
Nope. Okay, you good to go? You got any questions?
Didn't even put Pete down, I put Jordan.
I couldn't read the handwriting over here, so I read the email address.
Yeah, my email.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
I'd like to make a comment. If
Sure.
I could. And I've heard what everybody else has said, and I will, in all respect to council, tell them that they only know what they're told in there. And if it, and I'm not gonna put blame on anybody, but there's 3 tracks before you get there. There's the director of public works and the town manager. Those 2. That's who they get their information from. And I watch every work session you've had for the last X amount of years since you started putting it on. I haven't heard this much discussion about one identity in any of those meetings. It's too much of bringing a new project in, it's bringing another project in, but going back and saying, where are our current problems at? I haven't seen anybody discuss that yet. And I say yet. So hopefully this will be the key to doing that. I'm a strong supporter of having committees. If you had and I'm not talking about a monthly committee, even if you had it quarterly, be concentrated. Because it seems like the public works is more open to individuals rather than putting on the show for everybody to hear it at your work session and also at your regular session. But if you have a small committee, then you did it quarterly. I think you'd get a lot more information from the individuals that actually run it than what you're getting at your presentations now, because it's so structural in there. And I just, a word of the way I feel.
No, I appreciate it.
And I think it would benefit not only y'all, but it would be more open to the workers feeling that they have that type of bondage. Because I know when I used to go down and visit, they tell me, don't tell the mayor that. You know, don't show him that. And I'm hard to be led, so I wouldn't look, you know. The one moonshot that had where the plant looked like it was about this, one of the tanks anyway, it was about this high from being full. I think anybody with any common sense knows that you can't put, 5 pounds of poop in a 2-pound bucket. It just doesn't work in there. So with the SCADA, y'all were talking about it, is the alarm, but what causes it to alarm in there? We had Isabel and didn't have overflows at the plant because we had storage capacity. We were lucky. Y'all don't seem to have that. Why you don't have it, I don't know. That's what you're trying to figure out now in there. That's just the way it works. And I do say, I hope there's a better communication, not only with the town people, they need to know, but they really don't care. They flush and it goes out. But when you start talking about up in their pay, then they care. And I understand that point too. And I'm getting too long in there because I get hyped over talking about the town a lot in there. But I believe y'all are doing a good job. You're doing exactly what you can do. But I hope you just communicate not only among yourselves, with the workers, and with the townspeople. I think that'd be beneficial to all of you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Ms. Parker, Robin Parker, I have you next on.
Can I have one more comment?
It's gonna take me a while to get up there.
Okay, she said, go on with your follow-up.
I don't think I need a microphone. I will tell all y'all up there, I've been out of being mayor now for about 15 years, and I've got to the point where people wave, they use all their fingers. So I can understand the position y'all are in.
Thank you, Mayor Bone.
I don't think I need a microphone here. No. But I was curious because I came here just to hear and get information. And part of the thing that struck me was the watermen that are here and the impact of the closures that it had. And part of that was that the last closure, the results, the beach stayed closed. And I guess the fishing stayed closed also, just waiting for results to come back. Was that from samples after the spill and the treatment had been put back in place properly? So it was just a turnaround time from
It was a turnaround from the testing, and it was also of Maryland's side, and VDH got their testing back, and we were still waiting for Maryland's testing to return. So we continued in the abundance of caution, is my understanding.
Does, with Colonial Beach itself, is that, who shut, it's the Virginia Department of Health then?
Right.
That shuts it, so you have to meet what they ask you to do.
Correct. And all
so-
testing did meet the standard, well below, actually, I mean enormously below the standards when it came back, but.
Is there any way to decrease the turnaround time? Because was that $200,000 that you said was lost? But still, I mean, essentially, you're talking about a great deal of money that's being lost. If you could decrease the turnaround time on testing results, and I don't know if it's because it's working with an agency or if it's a private laboratory. If it's a certified laboratory that could help speed that up, it would be economically beneficial. And I guess there was no question there except for what was the delay?
Yeah, I think that the VDH has to use their testing people, and that's really a question for VDH, the Virginia Department of Health and the Maryland Department of Health. It's not the town. We had our own testing done as well, and River Keepers tested too, and we had all those results back, and we're still waiting for the state agency to get their official results from
Maryland.
Yeah, I think the ask is, can we go back to VDH and look at their protocols to see if there's.
Oh, yeah, we asked about that. Heck, yeah, we did.
So-
It seems.
Yeah.
So the issue that happened in July, the week of July 4th, DEQ did come out and do some testing in response. And I think that we turned that around from, and Diane helped me remember, I want to say it was 24 to 36 hours after we took those samples. So I remember it was late on a Friday afternoon that we had a big call to say, here are the results. So I know DEQ does that and does what they can to get those turnaround times. So it's probably a conversation with VDH.
And we'll follow up with the town to make sure that whatever response we get from VDH, we'll provide it so you can provide to everybody else as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Robin. Mike Mills. Oh, you don't have any questions? Mike, you got any questions?
I signed the wrong list.
That's okay. Okay, Isaac? Gone? Donna, welcome, Donna.
Hello. Well, my speech to you all is a little bit different than you might expect, but I think we just need to keep in mind the importance of water in general. So here we go. The earth was created, the sky, the seas, and the land. Along came the plants, animals, fish, and birds. Then us, the humans. We were given dominion over the earth, stewardship of our environment. We are to take care of the earth, and we have a responsibility to care for our creation. We're here today to focus on the seas part of the creation, the waters of the earth, and its cycle. The water cycle is a continuous process that involves the circulation of water within the earth and its atmosphere each and every day. The water cycle is basically a closed or a fixed system. The cycling of water is an extremely important process because it enables the availability of water for all living organisms. If water didn't naturally recycle itself, we would run out of clean water, which is essential to life. You may be wondering what this has to do with the topic of our special meeting, wastewater. Well, let me explain. The water cycle process includes supply, which is the water that we draw out of our environment. That water has to be cleaned and treated by a water treatment plant to make it suitable for human consumption, which is the potable aspect of it. We can drink it, we can use it to wash our clothes, do our laundry, take a shower. The second part of it is sanitation, and that's wastewater, and that's what we're talking about. That's what's used in our home, in a business, or in a manufacturing process of some sort. And it must be cleaned by a water treatment plant prior to being released back into the environment. And it's released back into our tributaries, and these tributaries here feed the Potomac River. And it begins with how the water is captured from the environment, how it's treated for drinking, cooking, and personal use, and how it's released and cleaned prior to being recycled back into our environment. So what's happening down there is the dirty water has gone into the Potomac River. So today the focus is on wastewater treatment. After all the water has been collected, it's running through this sewage pipe network that you've heard. Sometimes there's 2 in the front yard, sometimes there's 4. That's taken all the dirty water to the wastewater treatment plant, and here it undergoes a very complex treatment process, and I would presume it is pretty toxic. I've never really thought about it in that term, but I've smelled blue planes for a long time after I grew up, so maybe somewhat toxic too. But it's based on a lot of things. It's based on biological processes, which we didn't mention. It's based on chemical processes, which were mentioned, and it's even based on physical processes. In order to, these techniques help eliminate or reduce any contaminants that are potentially dangerous to nature and humans. But also because of wastewater treatment plants, we're able to reuse water, and we're able to recycle it and return it to the environment where it naturally recycles itself. So, in my opinion, it's time the town of Colonial Beach accept its stewardship responsibility and dominion over the functioning of the wastewater treatment plant, with an understanding of the environmental consequences of their actions on town residents like me, businesses like some of you own, and particularly for the visitors that are coming here because we have clean water to swim in and fish in and crab in, and there you go. Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, Mr. Hall? Donna, did you have a question? I just wanted to make sure we answered.
No, I have a lot
Okay.
of questions, but
I know.
I've heard.
You can keep emailing
I
me
have
though.
to process, what I've heard today, but
Okay.
this is just my gut feeling about the whole thing. It makes me kind of sick.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It can do that for sure. Mr. Hall, is he still here? Yes, James, come on up.
Okay. About 18 months ago, I approached these council meetings, brought up the problem of the 1921 dump in James Monroe Creek. Everybody loves their phone. If you Google Earth, right now, Google Earth, look at that dump site from space. It is sticking out like a sore thumb. I was told by DEQ, EPA, at first I was told, we'll take care of it. And then it got to be just, well, we'll get around to it. And then it got to be, it's not a problem. The facts remain. When it sticks out like a sore thumb from space, you can Google it. I'm not just blowing smoke here, people. It is a nasty habit that started in 1920, not by any of you people. The federal government closed that in 1975, 49 years ago, and nothing has been done about it. It's just been totally swept under the rug and ignored. Johnson, Kennedy, and Nixon all set up federal protection laws signed by Congress, acts of Congress, to keep that waterway back there and this waterway clean for all kinds of reasons. And nothing has been done about it. Zero. So my question is, what have you done since you tried to sell it recently at half price of what the value is?
Oh, on the dump.
Yes. You know, Brahma, because you would never return my calls or talk to me about it.
I have talked to you many times.
Ma'am, only very briefly. I mean, not even about the dump.
All right. I want to make sure we don't get in an issue with our special meeting requirements from FOIA.
I'm
But
done. I just wanted
there
to
are
bring that up.
stipulations to the sales of junk, of restoration and cleaning processes, and that was part of the sale. So I just leave it there so I don't get too far off topic with the sewer plant.
I mean, the DEQ came out there on a big boat. I told him to come out there and hold the John boat. The man wouldn't even want to get out of there to test the water. I convinced him finally, telling him, I'm 70 years old, sir. I'm much older than you. Can't you get out of that boat and get in my little kayak and go another half a mile to where it starts? And he finally did, and they took one water sample, just one, and that was all that was ever taken. No earth samples, no ground samples, nothing else, and that's not protocol.
Excuse me, just to clarify, this is a special meeting, so we're limited to the topics. Of
Well, it's wastewater.
Treatment plant. But yeah, but you're talking about something that's a little bit off. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we have, I know we said a 6 o'clock, meeting time, to be respectful of everybody's time. We have about 10 minutes left on that, but I'm gonna say we have about eight people left on the list. So I'm gonna try to make it to all 8, okay? So, AJ Erskine.
I already spoke.
Oh, sorry, okay. Nigel Long.
Nigel Long, I live in Lynn Court, and I've had the privilege of owning here in Colonial Beach for 5 years. I want to make a quick comment about some things that someone said about water meters. I just want to make sure I want to make sure everybody here knows that both the supply of water and the treatment of wastewater is highly capital intensive, and the costs don't relate, as I understand it, to how much water is used or how much water is collected. It's a capital intensive program, and therefore having a monthly, quarterly charge makes perfect sense. Maybe excessive use could be metered. I just wanted to share that as my personal thought about the situation. My question is about our capability to spend money. We've heard 16 million, 18 million, some enormous amounts of money talked about, and clearly they're not all going to be done in 2024 or 2025, but huge amounts of money. My question would be, do we have the capability of spending those amounts of money, managing the plant and keeping the day-to-day business of the town running, dealing with sidewalks and light fixtures and all the other things that need to be done? How do you tackle that? And do you need to consider part of the costs being the support to people like Diane to be able to manage these projects? It's not as simple, I don't think, as throwing money at the problem. And I hope that money doesn't come entirely from us as people who pay our sewer and water bill. $16 million is, if I'm right in thinking we have 3,500 people paying water bills roughly, would be $4,500 per person. I'm sure you're aware of that math as well. Thank you.
John, you want to answer the question about that Nigel posed?
I think the crux of your position is how does the town manage the projects, and how do they manage the expense and make sure that it's done well and make sure that it's done efficiently. Many communities, as these types of projects evolve, find that they have to add staff. As opposed to having your public works director manage the projects, you may have a project manager that you may need to retain in the future. One of the things that the council, working with your town manager, might want to take a look at is a staffing analysis. I believe you've got 68 staff here in the town of Colonial Beach. What are their roles? What are you expecting them? What services are you expecting them to provide? And what is their workload? So looking at project manager, looking at a staffing analysis, working with your town manager to make sure that those funds that you receive, those projects that you embark on, the funds are spent well and the funds are spent efficiently, I think would be real important. I think you mentioned, Mayor, the finance department. Finance department's real small, and the crux, everything runs through the finance department, believe it or not, because you can't do anything if you don't have any money, if it's not spent well. You have a very small finance department. It may be that you need to put someone or hire somebody in the finance department to deal with the projects that are being carried out. But that needs to be examined. It's not just saying, okay, we need this or we need that. You need to study it. You need to have a plan for that as well. But I think that's something that the town will be considering in the future.
Great. Thank you for your question, Nigel. Terry Miller is next.
This is preparation. Terry Miller, 121 South Irving and 10 North Irving. I have a co-speaker.
Hello.
I didn't actually have a question. Hey, I didn't actually have a question. I thought the meeting was more about infrastructure. I'm so glad it's about the fisheries and the beds, which is fantastic. But I just came to give feedback that as a developer on 10 North Irving, as well as a homeowner on 121 South Irving, the house with the big yellow chair, we've had a lot of stuff coming up. And I won't get into the specifics of it unless you really want to hear it. But I thought this was around a lot of infrastructure questions, and the stuff coming up as a business owner is difficult because we get calls in the middle of the night from our long-term tenants where stuff is coming up. And then when we come off the beach, have stuff coming up into our bathtub downstairs that is now permanently stained. It's just not good for the kids. It's not good for the cousins. I'll wrap it up. One thing I also wanted to say is a thank you to Madam Mayor and all of you all here, and Diane, thank you again. Really works great. Lots of nights and weekends coming out jetting. But I want to thank everyone here for all of this. I brought him here, I drug him here. He's been trying to get out of here the whole time because I wanted to learn about what real civic engagement looks like. And this is it. So. Right, well, on that note.
Thank you so much, Chair. All right, okay, we're still moving on, we're doing good. Mr. Vaughn, Robert? Okay, Alan Griffey? Come on up, Alan.
Just a couple items. I'm not sure who is responsible for new interim manager, John being here, but I certainly hope we're going to keep him on.
Yeah.
Very professional and gives us some added level of comfort to have someone with his experience level. So thank you for that. Secondly, how do we identify the locations of the spills? I look at the map and it says Wilkerson's Creek and Goldman Creek, of course, Monroe Bay. But often it's reported that Rozier Creek is the source of the spill. Is that one of the tributaries that services the plant?
You want to answer that?
And Jamie, feel free to jump in here if I miss something or if you want to contribute beyond what I say. After each spill, we are out there on the ground. We are following the path of the water. We look for where the water's going. We actually tramp through the woods and look at where the water has been, where it looks like it stopped. One of the reasons we do that is we want to know where the water's gone. How far did it make it? The second reason is we need to treat that area. We lime that area to neutralize some of the contaminants. So every time there's a spill, we walk the land behind the treatment plant and around the treatment plant to find out how far it's gone.
Okay, but I think to your point, Goldman Creek is quite a distance where the plant is from Rozier Creek.
Correct.
But it does feed to Rozier Creek, and if you notice, like Monroe Bay, the mouth of Monroe Bay meets the mouth of Maddox Creek, which extends quite far on that map, and we don't have a map of all these creeks and bays that we're talking about. But, my understanding is that Goldman Creek feeds the mouth of Rozier Creek. So it's not necessarily that further around, that it's going upstream in Rozier, but that is an estuary that feeds Rozier, that feeds the Potomac.
Yes.
It is tidal, it is tidal, but
Right.
it actually, Golden Creek actually feeds into the Potomac River, as I understand it. And maybe the tides bring it around, but it's often reported prominently Rozier Creek. And I just don't think we have spill sites on Rozier Creek. That's what I'm asking. Do we?
Yeah, I believe that the incident in July was Goldman and Rozier Creek, if I remember correctly. And there's, the location is dependent on certain circumstances where the issue happens in the plant or if the issue happens in the collection system. So that's why, every time it's a report, it might be in a little different location.
Okay, thank you.
Can you, just to follow up on that, can you clarify the difference between a spill at the plant and an early release of not fully treated water into Monroe Bay Creek? Diane, do you want to talk? There's two different things, that's why you see Monroe Bay sometimes.
I don't know that I would call it an early release. But what we did have on one of the spills, we had a problem with the effluent pumps crashing. And so what that caused was some treated effluent going out the pipe into Monroe Creek. But it wasn't, Harry, what's the term? Unpermitted. Is that the correct term, Jamie? Unpermitted discharge?
It was the UV system. And it was
Yes.
treated with UV light, but it still had particles in the water, which there was no way to stop the water from going out the plant.
Because our pumps were.
Effluent pumps, and it went out to the effluent pipe that runs out into Monroe Bay, where the old treatment plant is, where the T is from off there.
The discharge is in Monroe Bay, you know that, where
Yes.
the
Right.
treated water
Discharge
is.
pipe.
And the physical plant is on Goldman Creek.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so due to the tides, Rozier
And-
Creek is sometimes impacted, but there are no spills in
No.
tributaries that lead to Rozier Creek.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. And next, Kip Jordan.
Good morning, good afternoon,
Hi,
Council.
Kip. Good to see you.
Just want to let you know, I hear all the numbers and I think y'all doing a good job. I think what we got to worry about is our seniors that live in this town, according to their budgets. We're talking a lot of money to do this infrastructure. We got to worry about the businesses here. Everybody has, to pay the taxes, but we had a trash bill increase, which was, we created an enterprise to do the trash. And now they're talking about a water authority. King George residents pay a humongous bill every month for their upgrade in their water system. It's like $125 over top of their water bill. So if you have some seniors that have limited income, how are these citizens going to pay these increases? You got to have check and balances. You hire all these town managers, big increases. You got assistant town manager. There's taxes on us. I'm paying. I just think we need to allocate who's watching the money and where it's been spent. If you take grants, create jobs that you're using money that's supposed to be going for projects, we need to be watching this. And you as the mayor have to be accountable to everybody else. I feel like the Water Works Department, the town police department, they all have to answer to the citizen. I haven't seen the town manager come out shaking hands.
The town manager is sick today, so we have to definitely.
Okay, well, I'm just saying,
Right.
be out to the citizens. We should be able to come down there, knock on the door and talk to them. it's all secure.
Yes, making it accessible, I think that's.
That's a big problem.
Yeah.
You know, I think I pay the salaries. We all do. If you come to my house, you can come knock on my door anytime. If you need me, call me. But the DOQ, you might give us grants. Who's gonna be monitoring the money? We need a check and balance.
DQ, you wanna speak to that point?
Yeah, we have periodic audits, to make sure that the money's being spent where it is, so we will be monitoring and it will be used appropriately, so.
Yeah, I mean, we have grants that created jobs in this town before, which is happening right now.
DQ, have we had any concerns in that arena of?
If you're asking for this particular grant or for grants in general in the past?
For the town?
I have to go back and check the records, but I haven't heard of any misalignment or misuse of funds for any grants that DQ has personally awarded.
Okay, well, I'm not saying that but have we ever created jobs in this town, in the finance department, or any jobs on a grant position?
So that's somewhat of a trick question because the police department does have like grants and stuff for resource officers and that kind of stuff. So yes, we do utilize grants for positions within town, but it's for a specific grant, which is then followed up on just like DEQ does to validate that we use the money for what was said to be used for.
Okay, let's go back to our question. The question is, to me, is the grant for the part-time doing the town manager, which we had our town manager and we have an under town manager. Was that job created out of a grant?
I think it's multiple funding sources on that, but I'll get her to.
Yeah, that's what my understanding. It might be misinformation, but if a job is created by a grant, hoping to keep that position open, we as taxpayers are paying this money.
Yeah, we have to budget for all, and that's part of the budget process and part of what we have been working with. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I believe what Mr. Jordan's referring to is the previous town manager that left, she hired an assistant town manager, and I asked her how she was able to do that without authority from council, and she said she used the vacant fellow position, which is a very minor position, and then she used project manager funds, which were essentially ARPA funds. So that's where it's coming for that.
And the HR.
Okay, but it's one of the point that John just mentioned is that having somebody manage these projects is a part of one of the needs.
And then how about a citizen be on the board?
Parliamentarian.
Okay. All right, no, we're good. All right, look, Kip, and you know, you're always welcome, as you know, and have come to many council members. Keep coming back.
Well,
Please keep asking questions.
Y'all doing a great job, and I'm just worried about the taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, the taxes are killing. I paid $8,000 in car taxes last year, and now we got.
What kind of car you got?
But I'm just saying, it's and you're taking 8 cars, you're taking.
I know. We'll stay on topic. We'll stay on topic.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
I want to help the town. I want to do what's right.
Thank
The
you.
citizens need somebody to stand up for.
Absolutely.
Especially the seniors.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, that's everybody on the list. Mr. Trivett, you want to come up? You just raised your hand.
I just wanted to comment that,
Could you use the mic, please, Mr. Trivett?
can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I'll be glad to go up there, I'm sure you can hear me from here. You said,
Please, it's being
Sure.
recorded too, and it's hard for the recorder to.
oh, I got you, I'm sorry. I couldn't
Yeah, if you
hear
don't speak in the mic, it doesn't always pick up the audio on the. for the
I didn't
YouTube.
realize it was Dr. Karen, it was that saying that, I thought it was somebody back there, but anyway, I just wanted to say that the county administrator, Ben Prescott, has been here the entire time since the introduction, and we're partners in this as well. The county uses the system, as you all know. There was a lot of comments in the back to ask what I means that he mentioned many times. So if he could address what that actually means. A lot of the people that we're talking about is already gone and they may not know, but, and I did want to also comment about, I think just listen to this gentleman right here, you're absolutely on the right track. Having somebody that's been there and done that, and it seems like has seen any kind of problem that could come about. And I'm really looking forward to him being able to lead you and give you guidance, because it sounds like he has the background to do it. And also, one other thing is, a lot of citizens ask me about hearing comments about privatizing, and that wasn't mentioned tonight. And I know it's not going to be time to do that, but I know there's been some comments through council, and they're wondering how that would work, and is that going to cost a whole lot more money? So whenever you get a chance to address that at a meeting or in the near future, that would be something that I think would need to be talked about, to where the citizens, because most of them that's contacted me is worried about, like any other contractor, our rates are going to go through the sky if you get a private company to come in here and take that over. And I don't even know if it's legal, but it's something I think that the citizens need to know about if you are looking into that and what all it involves. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. John, you want to go ahead and respond to, I think that was a couple questions in that.
First one is I. Infiltration, inflow. I touched on this early in the meeting. Your sewer pipes, below grade, there's two ways to get inflow. One is through direct contact. In many houses, older homes were directly connected. Their line from the house to the street, town's sewer interceptor, was collected to the downspouts on the house. Sump pumps in basements, if there are any sump pumps in Colonial Beach, sometimes they may be connected to the wastewater treatment system. All of that water from the inflow is being treated at the wastewater treatment plant. In addition, if you have manholes in low-lying areas that are inundated, and I looked at, I had a neat chance to sit in on a resiliency update. You have some manholes that are close to the edge of the road, below grade, and the water runs off the pavement directly into the manholes. So that's inflow. Infiltration is where you have your pipes in the ground, and the collection of pipes that you have in Colonial Beach are pretty old, in most cases, of varying materials. And essentially what happens is the joints in those pipes, they don't seal out the water, they allow the water to infiltrate in. And so that's treated wastewater as well. And it counts against your permit requirements because it's part of your flow. It's also, as I said, costly to treat because you can't segregate it from the bad stuff coming in. So infiltration, inflow, it's not a problem just for Colonial Beach. It's a problem for a lot of municipalities in the United States. When I was in Warrenton, we had some lines that were wood. Believe it or not, sewage, wastewater collection lines that were put in the ground that were wood. Well, they're no longer there, but they were slowly deteriorating, and we were getting infiltration and inflow from them. So the town's infiltration inflow program would be to do a number of things. First of all, fix the lines. It doesn't necessarily mean that they need to be dug up. There is a way to, maybe I'm a little bit dating myself, but slip lining. Okay, still use slip lining. Slip lining is where you go in a manhole, you stick in a new insert, and you line the pipe, and it's durable. We did all of downtown Warrenton without digging up the street by slip lining. In addition, your manholes are a source of infiltration as well as inflow. I touched on the inflow. But manholes leak, particularly if they're brick manholes. And there are ways to put an inflatable, something or other in there, inflate it, and pour concrete or some type of sealant material to seal out that infiltration. So there's a number of ways to deal with that, but infiltration inflow is a serious problem here at Colonial Beach. Diane, you gave me some numbers tonight, which are pretty serious. And when we were in Warrenton, we had those problems. They're all fixable, and we fixed them. Mr. Duggan lived in Warrenton when I was there. We actually had a significant period of growth, we're treating the same amount of wastewater with all the new connections by fixing the infiltration inflow as when I left. That's over a period of 13 years. I'm not saying it will happen here. Our staff worked real hard at it, but it's achievable to fix those I&I problems. So the town's addressing that, and it is something which, you're paying to treat that infiltration inflow. So I hope that answered the question.
There was one other question there.
Yeah, well,
Help me out with that. I'm memory stating here.
The other question was in regard to potential increases or assumed increases if you privatize as opposed to. And I know the council had talked about looking at all of the solutions. And you and I actually had a conversation in this regard. It's not necessarily always true that rates go up when you privatize. Is that?
Yeah, it's dependent upon the system, the contract which is negotiated, and what the terms of the contract are. And that's one thing that the town will be looking at over the next year under council direction. The staff will be looking at those 4 options that I mentioned. And, which is the most viable? Which has the most upside, which has downside? They'll be looking at the alternatives as far as, what power does the town relinquish in any of those situations and scenarios? So that will be investigated, that will be reported to the council, and the council will undoubtedly be presenting that to the public, as those options unfold and they work through the decision-making process.
great, thank you. Okay, so we did pretty good, 6:15, 6:17, and that's everybody on the list. I want to say this conversation is not over, though. We should continue to have conversations like this, and the fact that wastewater is the highest priority and has gotten this much attention for the next steps is a positive thing for this project and to keep it a priority for the town. So I just thank everybody that came out because it's that attention that helps get to the solution. So with that, I'm gonna adjourn at 6:17 PM. Thank you.
Thank y'all.